Recording.
All right. Good morning, Wade. How are you?
Good morning, man. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. You feeling ready today?
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to our Leadership Masterclass. We are back every couple weeks. We are 1 week away from R&R. Wade, do you even know what R&R is?
I know what it is, but I've never been. So maybe I don't know the full story about it, but I'm excited to learn for sure.
Well, for an old guy like me, R&R has been one of the best things about our years. Since I've been an owner, you get to celebrate all the success stories. We haven't had one since pre-COVID, so since 2019. So this is going to be an amazing trip. And I know there's a lot of leaders on this call that may not be going. Well, set it on your goals, because we're either having another R&R this November or we're going to have another one next spring, possibly both. And even if you're not going to R&R, we have our regional leaders meetings, which are happening 4 times a year. We have one this weekend in Dallas, which is going to be exciting. We got a bunch happening in May. And there's just so many opportunities for you guys to network and learn. And it's always a pleasure doing these calls, and you guys get to hear from another great speaker today. It's a murderer's row of just people who are doing really great running their offices. Jared Hill, great job last week talking about mentality. We got Aaron Namako coming up the Tuesday after R&R. We got Anthony Puglia 2 weeks later, and then we're going to have a whole new slate of speakers. So every 2 weeks, you guys get a chance to hear from someone who's doing great at ownership and who was in leadership, just like you guys not too long ago. Okay, so Wade, your topic today is team building, and you're a very new owner. So you were in leadership. So I know you haven't listened to a crazy amount of these calls because I was just joking with you, but you were in leadership this time last year, and even if you look, he was in leadership 9-10 months ago, guys. Wade's been open in Corona, California for 8 months. Wade is kicking ass. He started in Dallas on Ready Refresh with Richard, was a part of an expansion. And over the last 8 months, he has become one of the top offices on door to door, expanded into retail, has 3 promotions going out into Denver. How many weeks away are we, Wade?
Their first day of sales is the first week of June. So we're about 2 months.
2 months away from having 3 promotions. I mean, talk about a good rookie year. Already put away $50K after putting expenses into new buildings. He's running 30 plus reps. He's only been in the business and ownership 8 freaking months. Wade, what the hell?
That's a good
man. Well, we're excited. And I think it's a good topic for you guys to listen to, because team building, as you guys know, we're trying to weave in a lot of the topics that are going to be relevant to you guys going through the training program. So recruiting is going to be huge for you guys, as you know. Team building is the part of it that turns that recruiting into getting promoted. Because if you recruit but you don't build people, then you're going to continue to cycle, and it's not going to happen as fast as you want. So nobody better right now to talk about team building than Wade Swandler. So Wade, the floor is yours, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, to start off with team building, I don't know if you guys saw it on the little loading thing, but it's like the name of what we do, like team building. Like, you cannot, one, get through the training program without building a good team. And number 2, you can't be in a successful position after the training and management if you don't have a good team around you there either. So I learned it from Chang. Those of you who know Chang, I think everybody should. That's the biggest tip that she ever gave me, and that I ever heard her say, was just how focused that she was on team building itself, how important it was. And then I have 3 things that I always personally love talking about when it comes to team building. So at least if you want to go to the first slide. The first topic that I want to talk to you guys about are one-on-ones. This is something that we have baked into our brains pretty hardcore in Dallas, is how important one-on-ones are. Some of the things that you go over are some breakdowns, something that I call TAP. We have break evens, making sure that people are doing well financially, understanding kind of how well they need to be in the field to pay their bills, having that personal and professional conversation, making sure that you make a real genuine connection with these individuals, but also making sure that you kind of set that boundary of like, hey, like, I still need to coach you, but I am here, and I do personally care and genuinely do care. When it comes down to the breakdowns, and I'm not talking about your LOAs in the field, like you can do that over a text message. Really, when it comes down to breaking down at a one-on-one, it should be a little bit about the field, kind of where they're at in their own process, as well as just kind of getting them to understand that I want to be better for them too. So I'm always asking for feedback as the mentor, as the coach, seeing if there's anything that they need from me, whether it be for the business or whether it be personal. Just, again, making sure that they care. That TAP right there, if you don't know what it is, I highly recommend you use it. I talk about it in my first one-on-ones with a new person. It just stands for trust, accountability, prioritization, and patience, which I'll touch more on the patience part in a little bit, but just kind of understanding, like, we need to be able to trust each other, trust the process, being accountable for us saying that we're going to do a certain thing, making sure that we follow through with it, or at least put the effort towards it if you're not successful at it, and just prioritizing the business, making sure that you understand it's, once you're 2 feet in, it's a lot faster, and it's really difficult to do this thing 1 foot in, 1 foot out, or even 2 feet out. But just substituting like 10, 15 minutes of Netflix or YouTube and pick up a book or listen to a podcast or even have a networking call of some kind. Just making sure that you're prioritizing your growth rather and shooting for that long-term gratification rather than the short-term gratification. But that's pretty much all I got about one-on-ones. I don't know if you have any questions about that, Dan.
Yeah, so I know that for when I was a new leader, one of the questions I had was the frequency of one-on-ones, right? So like how soon to do them, how often, with who, how long are they? Can you kind of break down the when, the where, the how frequent when it comes to one-on-ones? So if I'm a leader and I hire someone, what are the stages of one-on-ones that you like to schedule to make sure that whether it's the break even or it's the conversation about anything, what's your schedule with that?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to their first one-on-one, I'm doing it within the first 1, 2, 3 days. 3 days is pushing it. But I want to sit with that individual and develop that relationship very, very fast. And after that, I just book a meeting from a meeting. So I do it every single week. Try to keep it the same time if possible. But obviously whatever works for the individual, but I'm having them every single week, and just kind of going from there. I think an important time to do a break even when it comes to financials would either be the first or the second one-on-one. I don't like to wait until after that because then they're kind of just like blind knocking or whatever they might be doing, whether it might be retail, but just kind of getting the individual to understand like, hey, like I'm really serious about all this. I really want to put you in a really good position to succeed here. So like, let's get all the information we need. That way we know the best route to help and push you forward.
Yeah. Well, I like a couple of notes here. I like to book a meeting from a meeting. Yeah. So every time you're doing a one-on-one, you're scheduling another one later.
Yeah. So, before we even get up from the table, we're scheduling it.
I love that. You guys should be writing that down. The other thing I like is that in the first 1 to 2 days, you guys, Wade is making sure all of his leaders and even himself is doing a break even with the person that they've hired. I think one of the biggest fears for people is having a misunderstanding of commission, misunderstanding of how they get paid, even though in the prelim, in the second round, in the close, it can be made clear or it can be said. Sometimes people forget. And, sometimes it needs to be repeated. Oftentimes it does. So if someone's starting and they go out in the field and they're not sure how the money works, they're not sure when the first paycheck comes, that's one of the top reasons we lose people is because confusion about pay. It's not even that they're not making enough. Some people just don't know how or when or why. And having someone give you their break even. And then also, Wade, I'm sure in those conversations where leaders do break evens, red flags pop up, right? And so you're able to have those conversations. What do you see happen that's a positive from those break evens that you as the owner are able to help the leaders with?
I kind of think it just comes back to, like how you said people like forget and they don't really know how commission works sometimes and honestly how good commission really is. So I'd say like those are some positives, like kind of being able to clear up those doubts in new people, especially if they're sharp and they just don't have that self-confidence in themselves yet to be able to pay their bills off of commission. Being able to break it down and especially you can break it down so much that you can like doors per hour on how many doors you're going to need to knock and just do the math backwards. So it really just kind of makes this big unknown cloud to them really attainable. And it puts them in a better mood, which helps in the office. It helps in the field. It helps that leader being able to train them with that new person, just kind of taking that deep breath and releasing that uneasiness, I guess is what I would say are some positives.
Yeah. And the one-on-ones, I'm assuming too, you're having the leaders, they're doing this outside of the office, correct?
Yeah.
They're not like pulling someone aside. I know sometimes I've heard people say, oh, I talked to them. It's like, well, you just pull them into an office. There's a big difference, right? If you're on my team, Wade, and I say, hey, Wade, I know you're brand new, but hey, I'd love to grab a quick coffee or a quick dinner after work just to get to know you better, kind of understand your goals so I can help, be a better coach. How does tomorrow night sound? And when that person gets that experience where you make them feel important and you sit down with them, Wade, you can probably agree that in those conversations, people become a lot more real with whatever's on their mind. They're not, when they're in the office or you're in a car ride, it's hard for people to really say what they think and tell you everything that's going on. But when you get people in these environments, they're able to really trust you more. They're able to reveal more, which allows you as the leader to build more of that connection and then identify, whoa, this person's telling me that, their wife is really upset. So we got to meet the wife, right? Or, hey, this person's telling me they're really nervous because they never sold before, but they wouldn't have said that in the office. So Wade, when you do these one-on-ones outside of the office, how much does that impact your ability to understand the person better and get them to have more conviction towards the training program?
Yeah, I think it just comes back to building the relationship. And I don't know, like when I think about like what got me to stick around, it was definitely just my relationship with my upline, with my mentor. But I think, I don't know, like there's something different about sitting down at a table with either food or drinks in front of you. That's just so much different than like, hey, let's like have a genuine connection, but here at my desk in the office that you're spending a whole bunch of time in, I think it's more personable, it's more relaxing, it's more laid back, it's just easier. I think they're way more effective in a public setting that you can share and break bread with. And that's why we had a time here when we first got out here where people would do them at the office because it's convenient, and I understand that, but it got to a point where it's just like, it's so much more beneficial if you do it outside of the office.
Yeah, I remember when I was a leader in the field, like I used to, take people out to like Burger King. And be like, people think you got to take them out to fancy restaurants. You don't. Now, Burger King it wasn't as, people didn't consider fast food as gross back then. So that's why it was okay. But you can take people out and not spend much money. Leaders sometimes worry, I don't want to take my person out. You'll talk about investing. You can get a cheap meal. You can grab an appetizer, and that, like you said, that connection, being in a different environment, it's kind of like the uniform. The uniform's not on, and it's a whole different trust build. So if you guys are listening, one of the big parts of team building that Wade focuses on is one-on-ones, and he's doing them every week almost with his people, his special people, whether it's the break-in when they start, it's the one-on-one outside of work to go over goals. I'm sure, Wade, you have the one-on-ones where you just check in with people. How you doing? How's your personal life? How you feeling? And when you do these consistently, guys, you're always going to have this thing where you're on the same page with your people. Like, what they're thinking, they know what you're thinking. And now when you show up to the office the next day, you feel like, okay, we're ready to go to battle. But when you don't have those one-on-ones, you start to lose connection. It's like a distance becomes between you and your people. And then you're guessing on what they're thinking. And that's not a good place to be. So sorry to keep going, but I think it's such an important topic that leaders need to focus on.
Yeah, no, one-on-ones are they're way too vital to not be doing. So I definitely do recommend anybody who's watching that you do weekly one-on-ones with your people. At least to just get them to understand that you're genuinely there and genuinely do care. But at least I'm ready for the next slide. Awesome. So this one's talking about investing. It's super important that you're investing all your time, your money, and your effort. And I'm not saying like all of your money needs to go into these people, but if you're not putting the time in for them, what makes you think that later on in the future they're going to want to put the time in for you? And I just think it's a sowing and reaping effect. It's something that I've definitely experienced over time. Am I still here?
Oh yeah, you're here. We got you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, my Zoom did a little weird thing. But yeah, you need to invest your time. It's something I experienced throughout my training process while I was in Dallas. Even if they're not weren't on my team, I was still trying to help everybody and anybody I could, because I knew at some point in time it would come back to me. Good karma is definitely a real thing, in my opinion. When it came to money, if somebody's in an unfortunate situation and you see that they're putting in the effort, they're trying, they want to make this work, like, and they need like a new blazer or like a button-up shirt to make sure that they're in dress code, like, go to the thrift store with them, spend the $11 to go make them feel better. And definitely the effort. I think one of the things that helped me out a lot in terms of team building in general was when I was going through the training, I had a couple people that didn't have cars. And I would go pick them up for work if they needed me to come pick them up. That's definitely something that helped one of my assistant managers. I know in his process, he's one of the most selfless people when it comes to investing. He'll give all the time in the world, as much money as he's able to give without putting him in a bad spot, and definitely all the effort in the world in his team. And that's why he's got 15 leaders or so on his team. It's just super important to give is really the goal here, is just understanding that the more you give, the more eventually you'll get. But you shouldn't really think of it that way. Just think of it like, hey, like, I'm going to invest my time to help you get to where you want to be. I'm going to help invest my money if that's what you need. I'm here for you. You know, at the end of the day, I'm not going to hit my goals if you don't hit yours. So let's focus on yours, and whatever you need from me, I'm here for it. I'm going to give you my 110%, but that's also what I'm going to want back from you as well. So it does come with conversations. You know, you don't want anybody to take advantage of you or feel entitled, but just understanding that you're pushing with them and investing all three of those things, I think, is super important.
Yeah, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, right? Because the one thing that leaders always ask me, or you feel it through the team building process. When I was a new leader, I remember the first guy out of my team, his name was Joey. I was like, wow, this is my guy. I used to pick him up he lived in downtown San Francisco. I used to drive to his house to pick him up before work. I used to give him money. I remember I bought him a tie. And I was like, this is my guy. And I remember he was such a mess. He had tons of personal problems. He was very, good dude, but just had really up and down confidence, very flaky. And I remember one day he just said, hey, I can't do this. And it like hurt me to my core. I was like, what? I'm like, I used to pick you up. I buy you a tie. You're my guy. We used to drive an hour to the office, and it really hurt me. So what do you say to someone, Wade, where, they're like, I don't want to keep investing because I invested the last couple of people and they fell off. Well, how am I going to keep investing if the last people before that I invested in? Because what happens to leaders is they become jaded. They're like, I'm not investing anymore because the last person I invested in, they didn't work out. So now I'm going to wait until this person shows me that they're worth investing in. And that is a terrible way to do things. But I remember thinking that when I was a new leader. So what's your advice for someone that thinks that?
Well, number one, I've definitely been that way too. One of my first guys ever was in an unfortunate situation. Same thing. I bought him a bunch of stuff, would spend a whole lot of time and effort on him, and he eventually quit too. But my rebuttal to that is, I mean, if you get told no at your first three doors, are you just done knocking or what? I think it's pretty simple. I think that's just a very selfish mindset, I guess you could say. That's like you are richer, like any of your owners who have had to go like retrain or something, like, oh, because that owner didn't succeed right away, it means I'm not going to promote offices anymore. Like, it just doesn't make sense, right? So yeah, but that's also why it's called an investment. Because think about it, if you have three people, two of them you invest like $50 into, and then the other one you invest another 50, but they turn out to be an owner someday, I think that's a pretty good investment in my opinion. I think the return on that is crazy, and you can't really get much better than that, So I think my advice would be to stop being selfish and just keep being selfless. It'll come back to you eventually. Maybe not right when you want it, but it will at some point in time.
For sure. Being a leader is hard. It's easier to be a follower, right? It's why there's way less teachers than there are students. There's way less coaches than there are players. There's way less bosses than there are employees, or leaders than there are employees. It's hard to be a leader, but we got to understand, and all of you guys got to understand, that you're in an industry that is, looking for a top tier type person. When I say top tier, it's not necessarily their resume, but we're looking for that top 10%. We're looking for those people that really want to do more to become more successful. People that are willing to adjust their personality, willing to make sacrifices, not because we force them to, but because they come in, they see it, and they want it for themselves. And we've had a lot of discussions on, what makes someone sharp and all that stuff. But, when I'm building a team, and I had to learn this, just like Wade did, was that there's a law of averages to building a strong team. And he talked about, hey, I invested in this guy, I invested in this person, and those two didn't work out, but the third one became one of my top leaders, right? And if you guys think about how big this industry's gotten, it's gotten to 40 plus countries, billions in sales. The biggest thing we're the biggest thing for the clients that they got off of that 10%, right? So, you're working with law of averages in the field. You're working with law of averages with building a team. So you can't prejudge, right, a person because they kind of seem like someone else before. You obviously prejudge their resume a little bit. You ask them questions, but Wade, there's probably been a lot of people that you did all the right steps to. In your mind, you're like, man, this person doesn't seem like they're going to be great. And then they totally shock the hell out of you, and they become one of your best people, right? And if you didn't do all the little things that you usually, or you should have done because you were already in this mindset of, they kind of seem like something that won't work out, now all those little things would have added up to where they don't feel special. And they say, hey, I guess it's not for me. And you don't know when you lose someone, they don't announce, hey, you didn't do something special for me. They just fall off. So really, like you said, Wade, the mindset is you do the right thing every time to increase the odds, and you don't prejudge. And you never know after those first 2, 3, 4 weeks, who's going to rise up based on you putting in the time, investing some money, not crazy money, doing little things and putting in the effort, knowing you're looking for that top 10%. So for some of you guys, it's going to be 40, 50 interviews or 40, 50 people you put on your team. You're going to look for your top 10%. That's 5 leaders. There you go. And now you're getting your own office. So anyways, I think it's kind of like the field weight, right? Like it's kind of like that mindset of you can't take a past or a person that didn't work out and apply it to the next person. Just like you can't take a no at the door and apply it to the next door.
Exactly. Awesome. And then Elise, I'm ready for my last slide. So this is the last P on that tap thing that I was talking about for one-on-ones. And the reason why I gave it its own slide is in my personal opinion, I think it's the most important one because I think it's the biggest one that a lot of us struggle with going through the training. And it's patience. And I can't tell you how crucial being patient is. You got to be patient, 1, with yourself, 2, with the team that you're trying to build, and number 3, which I think is most importantly, with your mentor. Understanding that everybody in this business, including Van himself, is actually learning every single day. So even when it comes to like me and Richard having conversations, I know I got to be patient with him, because today's a new day to him too. He hasn't seen it before. He doesn't know what's going to happen, how to conversate with people or anything like that. So just understanding that you need to be patient. Everything takes time. And on top of that, we're kind of all on our own journeys, we tell people a specific time frame, but we give it a range, right? If everything was supposed to work out perfectly, we would tell people that the training takes exactly this long, right? But we have to give it a time range because it's self-paced. Everybody's going to be different, and I tell the team all the time, like, hey, like everybody has different learning styles. So different coaching needs to be given. If you don't know how to do that coaching, you're gonna have to learn, right? So just being patient with yourself, understanding that you're going to make mistakes every single day. Your team's going to make mistakes every day. So is your mentor and your coach. So just being patient with the process. One of my favorite quotes. I don't remember who actually came up with the quote, but I remember one of my guys, Brandon. He said this one day in a car ride in Dallas when I was still in the training, and it was a popcorn quote talking about how popcorn kernels are in the same pot, in the same oil, underneath the same heat, but they don't pop at the same time. And that's not weird to us. So why would this be any different, right? We're all humans in the same type of training, same environment in those offices, and we don't all pop at the same time. And it's just because it's not our time yet. Our time will come when it's supposed to come. So just being patient with the process, being patient with yourself is probably the hardest thing to do, especially because I know a lot of us that want to be the top 10%, the top 5%, 1%. Like we want to get there fast, right? But it doesn't matter how fast you get there. It's about how ready you are when you are there. And a good example of this is my best friend, John, who's coming out here. He'll actually be out here next week, which I'm super excited for him. But his took a little bit longer. We both started the same day. His process took a little bit longer, but he wouldn't have been able to get through it and complete it at all if he wasn't patient with himself and with the coaching that Richard was giving him, making sure that John was going to be the best version of himself for when he got out here. Now John, it might have taken him a little bit longer, but I can guarantee you John's going to come out here and he's going to apply the pressure on me for sure. And I'm really excited for it. And it all came from just him being patient. And just being patient with your team is super important too, considering you've been in their position before. So understanding that, hey, like somebody was patient with me, so let me be patient with this person too. Just because somebody was patient with me doesn't mean I don't have to be with anybody else and everybody else should get it. It's not really how it works. But yeah, just take your time. Again, like two things are true. You're going to complete this training unless you quit or get fired. So don't do either of those two and you're good. It's just a matter of time at that point and your effort level on how fast it goes. But just be patient with it because everybody's journey is different. So don't compare yourself and just enjoy the ride. Stop and smell the flowers every once in a while.
It's crazy because like when you say the word patience, right? Like think about how fast you've grown, right? Where you were, because it's in our world, what seems like a long time is a very short period of time, right? So I remember in my training program, like a month in leadership felt like a year, like all the things I learned, all the experiences I had. So it's funny because like, patience is good, but holy crap, people are going from entry level to ownership in 10 freaking months. And, we talk about Richard, Richard has patience with people, but when you have patience within conversations, you have patience with the development of a person, because we're in a world, guys, where every day we're able to, move mountains in terms of performance, grow personally, professionally. 1 month, some of you guys go from being afraid to talk in front of the room to running impacts for 25, 30 people. Man, it's almost like be patient, but don't be too patient, because you can grow exponentially fast compared to, just working at a regular job, right? Where, I worked in the restaurant business for, you worked similarly, but you were the cook. I was more waiting the tables. I worked in that business for 4 years and nothing changed. Nothing changed. I was in the same exact position. 4 years later, same exact position. And to think where people can go in 4 years, let alone 4 months, it's really, really crazy, right? So patience, but man, don't be too patient, because you can see how fast you can get ahead. I love that. I love that comment there. Okay, guys, I want to make sure, and that was our last slide, right, Wade?
Yep, that's all I got.
So I want to make sure we get questions off, because I got a hard stop. Ken wants to use this link at 8:45 our time here on the West Coast, but I want to make sure you guys ask some questions in the chat. I have one question that we're going to get to the question. One of the things that in team building, it gets brought up a lot with my guys, especially, is we know kind of what to look for, right? Okay, someone that's motivated, someone that works hard, someone that's a student. What do you look for to remove someone? Like, what are the things that would make you say this person shouldn't do this? And how quickly do you act on that? Because I know you talked about patience with people, but I think a big problem that happens across the board is that leaders and offices, they're holding on to the wrong people, right? They're letting people that shouldn't be in that room, that aren't excited and aren't appreciative, keep showing up. So how do you look at that, Wade, in terms of building an office, in terms of building a strong team?
I think the biggest thing for that, and it's not an easy thing to do, it definitely takes some practice, is removing emotion from situations. Kind of just looking at the facts, look at it black and white, yes and no. Is that person working out? Whether it be the production in the field and it's just been so long, they've been doing terrible, or whether it be the way that they're treating other people in the office, or whatever it might be. If you can remove your emotion and that connection that you do have, if you're able to flip that switch and remove emotion, it makes decisions a little bit easier, I guess. In business, when it comes to making those types of decisions, you can't rely on your emotions. They're not going to get you too far too often. So I don't know. I guess like the thing that I don't like, that I'm not a big fan of would be like lying, I guess. And I remove that pretty quick, in my opinion. I don't know. I just feel like being honest and having a conversation. I talk about communication all the time with my team. Like, I'm like, hey, all I ask is communication. Like, there's no need to lie to me. I'm a human just like you are. Just talk to me. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know. The biggest tip for people is figure out how to remove your personal emotion. It's a little bit different for everybody, and just look at the facts, and just kind of understand like, hey, is this helping or is this hurting this person more?
Yeah. There's a couple things there. One of them, I love how he's like, hey, if you're lying to me, that's probably not a good sign. Like, this person probably shouldn't be working with me and my team. That's a good standard. Don't be a liar. On top of that, Wade talked about patience. And I think one of the things that I went too far on when I was new was someone said, hey, if someone's, if they're lazy, they don't take notes, if they have a crappy attitude, get rid of them. And I used to be like, all right. So the second day someone showed up to the office, I saw them not taking notes and I went crazy on them. I'm like, how are you not taking notes? And I was freaking people out. Right. So there's like this window of time, right? The first couple of weeks, I learned that give someone 2 weeks where you're not overwhelming them. You're kind of like letting them show you who they are. Right. So if they're a person that their attitude's up and down, okay, you're seeing it happen and you're talking to them about it. If they're super negative in the office, obviously you got to send them home, but we're talking about some of the basic new person issues that we all go through. And Wade, you're kind of talking about, okay, looking at someone and saying, if they've got major problems, you got to remove them. But I do think those first couple of weeks, if we all just take ourselves back to when we were brand new, right? Some of the stupid stuff we did, right? And my habits weren't great. I was showing up 5 minutes late to the office. I was leaving as soon as I could. I was not acting like I was a leader. I was barely taking notes in the meeting because I didn't get it. And if someone would have been overwhelming to me, like, hey man, like I'd have been like, what the, like, I'm just here to have fun and have a job. I'm not, why is everyone freaking out on me? You can turn people off big time by being too much like that, right? But obviously, Wade, you probably have that window. Well, once you kind of cross that threshold, and once someone expresses to you, hey, I'm interested, right? I want more. Okay, now the person's telling you they want more, right? Now you can tell them, well, if you want more, you got to do X, Y, and Z. And obviously, once you get to that point, a week or two into it, and the person's, their habits are just really bad, then that's where you start to say, hey, maybe this isn't a good fit. And you got to have those conversations. But really, guys, it's important to identify that the difference between someone that's got a real issue, like a real issue that you got to remove, or someone that's just brand new and they're, it's kind of like a baby learning to walk. Like they don't know what they're doing yet. So give them a little bit of slack initially to see what opportunity meetings will do, what Zoom calls will do, all that other stuff. I love it. Okay. I know there was another question. Wait, oh, wow, they're coming in here. So we got 10 minutes. All right. Can you go back to what is TAPP one more time?
Yeah, so that is TAP. That's something I go over in the first one-on-ones, and it stands for trust, accountability, prioritization, and patience. And just getting the individual to understand how important those four things are to your guys' relationship, and personal and professional, because you want to be able to trust them. You want them to trust you. You want both of you to be able to be held accountable for each other. Both of you prioritizing the business and one another, and just being patient with one another is what TAP stands for. All right. And then we got another question here. What if a person that's on your team is not great at sales, but is really good at team building? What do you do with that person? Is their name Wade is the question I have for you, because that was me. What you do is one, again, be patient with them, but two, you do need to push them a little bit and get them connected with people who are doing really well, in terms of the sales, especially if your coaching style to them isn't really clicking and they're not picking it up, give them to somebody else for a day in the field, or put them on a call with somebody who has a similar background and story to them, because they could say the same thing that you say, but have a different tonality to it, and it'll click for them. It's kind of weird how it works. I can't tell you how many times I've been told the same thing by different people, but it didn't click until like the third person that told me. It's just the way that they said it. It's never going to matter what you say. It's how you say it. So I'd say if they're good at team building, that's good. Obviously we're not a sales business, but sales are important. So you do need to push them and get them connected with the right people that are going to put them in a position to succeed if you're not able to get them there for that category. Yeah, nice. And then we got a question here. Yes, these videos are available on the Slack channel. So anybody that wants to get access, Maddie sent out the Slack channel for all these videos to go back and watch them. Like, man, we're 2 years into this. So, whatever that number is, 26 times, I think we've done more than that, because we've done some of them we were going every week, but there's got to be well over 50 or 60 or 70 different videos. So you can look them up there. And then another question here. What is the usual timeline again for the one-on-ones? Is it every month? How frequently are you doing them with each person? The first one-on-one needs to be done within the first 3 days, 100%. Get that relationship started very, very early on. After that, every single week, you need to book a meeting from a meeting before you guys get up from whatever table you're at or bar you're sitting at. You need to book another meeting, and it needs to be the next week, whatever time works for both of you. You need to have them weekly, because again, kind of how Van said earlier, a couple of days feels like a couple of months in our business, so during that week's time, a whole bunch of stuff has happened that you probably don't know about yet. So the one-on-one's really important to be able to dissect everything that's going on, to dissect their growth and see where they're headed, what they need to be improving on, what you need to improve on for them. Because so much happens in such a short amount of time in our business, which is really cool, in my opinion. Yeah, absolutely. The weekly one-on-ones, or whether it's Dana Iverson, you guys have heard her talk about that, getting on the same page. And we talked about Sundays, talking to your people, setting up goals, but these are kind of those extra one-on-ones where, and again, you have a team, right? Where you're going to have your one-on-ones with your special people. And then you're going to say, hey, leader, you need to do one-on-ones with your people, right? And if there's someone special on their team, you're going to get with them and talk to them. But
it really becomes, an entire office-wide thing that you as the leader eventually are not doing all of them because you don't have the time, but you're picking your special people that you want to talk to. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you recommend a team meeting once a week with all your leaders and reps on top of one-on-ones?
Yeah, I actually would. When I was in Dallas for a while, I actually would hold a meeting at the start of the week to kind of go over goals and stuff, and then a meeting at the end of the week to see how we were on our goals / if we hit them or not. Super beneficial, super duper beneficial. Definitely with the leaders at least, but the reps you don't necessarily have to, but they might feel inclusive when you do that. So definitely include them. It might motivate them, just kind of get that little special feeling of, ooh, I get to go to this like super special meeting type of deal. But yeah, definitely do weekly meetings with your teams for sure.
Yeah. I think, having your group together and them seeing you prepared and them seeing you talk about what the data was, the numbers, and go over numbers for the next week, they feel like, wow, this person that I'm following, like they're organized, like they're setting up game plans for us. Like we have a coach, we have a leader that is looking at this from a business standpoint, and they're ready to attack the week. And it makes them feel more accountable. Like I have to do well because I'm a part of this team, right? And obviously, I mean, Wade, you would agree one-on-ones are more important. If you're going to scale them, one-on-ones are more important than just doing a group meeting. But having those group meetings to go over team goals and build camaraderie and talk about your visions and all the things that are going to be happening, obviously that's important because that's the one time where you can deliver a message to everybody at once. Okay. And then we do have a question about the link for the Slack link. I know that's sent to the owner. So Melanie, who's asking that question, it's not dropped in this, but it is sent to all the owners. So whoever your owner is, ask them for the link. They can give you access. So then you can go through and look at all those videos. We can't share this with the entire world. Very important private information, but your owner can give you guys access individually if requested. So, all right, Wade. Well, great job today. Really appreciate you taking the time. Pumped to see you next week at R&R. You're doing a great job, Wade. Keep kicking ass. I appreciate your time today.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me on here. At least thanks for the help getting me prepared for it. And if you're playing volleyball at R&R Vid, just be prepared to lose because I'm really good at it.
Wow. Okay. I'll let Ken know. I'm going to see him tomorrow. I'll let him know you're talking crap already. We'll have to do a few extra push-ups. All right, Wade.
All right, man. Have a good one.